What would you give up if you could become invincible? I mean, think about it. No cuts, no wounds, no viruses. Vin Diesel stars in the adaptation of the extremely popular comic Bloodshot, where he's pretty much indestructible. But is this movie? Vin Diesel stars as a soldier who is brought back to life so he can regenerate and not be harmed. And now he's out for revenge on the one that harmed his family. As much as I hate to say it, if you've seen the trailer, then you've pretty much seen the movie. Now, I haven't read the comic that this is based on, so all I knew about the story was what I was shown in the trailers. And golly, the trailers, they should have come with spoiler warnings because it laid it all out. Now, the premise of this is actually pretty cool, where they take a body and they inject it full of nanites, which are these tiny little microscopic robots, basically, and they help to heal. And they can heal up wounds, they can just do anything for the body so that you can't get harmed, you can't get hurt, and you can't bleed out because they are your blood. It's kind of crazy, and it's definitely sci-fi and just a new take on something, but it's kind of cool in that premise. I also like that because they're tiny robots, it allows Vin Diesel's character to access things that he would normally not have access to. There's supporting characters in this, and they're all at varying levels of decent. Guy Pearce is kind of fun, but he's very underdeveloped in his motivations and just his entire character. Sam Heughan gets some great action scenes, and they're a lot of fun to watch, but his character also doesn't have any depth to it. There's not really any motivation. I mean, he's basically a hammer looking for nails. Isa Gonzalez is probably the most enjoyable of the supporting characters, and that's because she has a depth to her. She gets to have a range of emotions, which adds to the fun of seeing her on camera. I liked Lamorne Morris in this, but he's basically a British Winston Bishop from New Girl. I mean, it's all of the same type of mannerisms, the same type of inflection, just with a British accent, and some of his jokes work, but a lot of them fell flat. The special effects are fun, but because we saw almost all of it in the trailer, it didn't have a wow factor for me when I saw it on the big screen. Many of the action scenes are fun, especially some of the chase scenes involving one of the soldiers that has some just augmented seeing abilities. And there's also some good close quarter fighting and some gun battles as well. But then they do the whole slow-mo thing where it just feels overused. They do it too much and it becomes forced. It becomes actually boring to watch, that I'm tired of seeing this slow-mo into sped up and then back into slow-mo action. I get it. Just show me the action scenes, get me up close, get me into it, and let me have some fun with it. And several of those slow-mo type scenes end up feeling a lot more like video game cutscenes than something cinematic. But I know that sometimes those cutscenes are way better than what we see in the movies. That's just not the case in this one. It's kind of funny too that the opening and the closing scene, and especially the closing scene, felt so much like a Michael Bay film. I mean, enough for me to look for his name in the credits because I thought, well, maybe he had some kind of influence in this, because it was crazy that it really did feel like the beginning and the end of a Transformers movie or some other movie that Michael Bay does. It just has these shots and the way the sun breaks through trees, just the whole feel of it. I literally thought that he had a hand in making this. I think Vin Diesel does all right in this, but we have seen more depth and passion in his performances in other movies. I mean, even thinking about the first Fast and the Furious movies, he's drawing more and it feels more family, and it just feels like he's more human in that. Now, we know he can do action. He does great action in Bloodshot as well, but it's missing that human element, that he becomes more of the soldier, more of the robot, and more detached, and so it really makes it hard to empathize with him and to really root for him in his pursuit. And again, I don't think that's the fault of him. I think that's more the fault of the direction and the editing of the film. And the story that they end up telling just is kind of robotic. So if you plan on seeing this one, then definitely go for the action. It is a lot of fun, but don't go because you're hoping for some great character development or a really in-depth and well-made story. I mean, the action is fun, and especially if you haven't seen the trailers, don't watch the trailers. Just go in and see this and enjoy it for what it is. There are some great special effects. There's some really good fight scenes and some great action scenes and some okay characters as well. I do see how they can set this up for more of a series because, again, it's based off of a comic. So I would be interested to see if this does well. Do they continue on with this path? And then how do they shape it and how do they change it so that we can be more invested in who Diesel's character is and his pursuit and where does he go from here? Because now he's got all of these nanites in him and he's kind of a superhero, and what's next? There's no sex, there might be slight nudity, a lot of profanity, and of course a ton of violence. I give Bloodshot 2.5 out of 5 couches. Are you a fan of Vin Diesel? Do you have a favorite performance of his? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for catching with me.